Dr. Elena Vasquez rubbed her tired eyes and looked at the computer screen again. She had been working at the radio telescope for 12 hours straight. The numbers on her screen were dancing, but not from tiredness. Something was very wrong with what she was seeing. The signal came from space, but it was not like any signal they had ever received before. It was strong, clear, and repeating the same message over and over again. Elena had been searching for alien life for 15 years, and she knew this was not a natural signal from a star or planet. She picked up her phone and called her boss, Dr. Martin Webb. "Martin, you need to get here right now," she said. Her voice was shaking. "I think we have found something." "Elena, it's 3 in the morning. Can't this wait until—" "No, it can't wait. Trust me on this one. Bring the whole team. We need everyone here now." 1 hour later, 6 of the world's best scientists were crowded around Elena's computer. The signal was still coming through strong and clear. It was not random noise or interference from Earth. This was definitely from another world. "Where is it coming from?" asked Dr. James Chen, the team's expert on space distances and star positions. Elena pointed to her star map on another screen. "The Kepler 442 system. It's about 1 in 200 light-years away from Earth." "That's impossible," said Dr. Chen. "If someone sent this signal from there, it should have taken 1/200 years to reach us. But according to these readings, the signal is arriving in real time. It's like someone is talking to us right now, not sending us a message from the past." Dr. Webb studied the signal patterns. "Have you tried to decode it?" "I've been working on it for hours," Elena replied. "The signal contains mathematics, but not just one type. It has 17 different mathematical languages mixed together. All of them are saying the same thing." She pressed a few buttons and the computer screen changed to show rows of translated text. The room went completely silent as everyone read the message. "Warning to any species receiving this transmission. They are coming to your world. We tried to stop them, but we failed. They destroyed our planet. They destroyed our people. They are moving to the next target. Prepare yourselves. Fight them with everything you have. Do not let them win." The message continued with detailed information about star positions, travel routes, and something that made everyone's blood turn cold: coordinates pointing directly to Earth's solar system. "This has to be some kind of joke," whispered Dr. Sarah Kim, the youngest member of the team. "Someone is playing a trick on us." Elena shook her head. "I thought so too at first. But look at this." She brought up another screen showing complex mathematical equations. These equations describe how gravity works around very large objects in space. But these are calculations that our best scientists are still trying to figure out. Whoever sent this signal knows things about space science that we won't understand for maybe 50 or 100 years. Dr. Webb was already reaching for his secure phone. "I need to call the government immediately. If this signal is real, then the whole world needs to know about it." As he made his calls, Elena continued studying the signal. Hidden in the mathematical code, she found star maps showing the path of something moving through space. The path started from the direction of the Kepler system and ended at Earth. "There's more," she announced. "The signal contains a timeline. According to this, whatever destroyed their world is already traveling toward us. And if their calculations are correct, it will arrive here in exactly 18 months. Dr. Chen was studying the star maps. These are incredibly detailed. They show the positions of stars that we didn't even know existed. And look at this section here." He pointed to a part of the display. "This shows battle formations, weapon types, and defense strategies. Someone fought a war against these invaders and lost, and now they're trying to teach us how to fight them too." The phone rang, interrupting their discussion. Dr. Webb answered it and talked quietly for several minutes. When he hung up, his face was very serious. "That was the director of NASA," he said. "They've been receiving calls from radio telescopes all around the world. Everyone is picking up the same signal. The Russian, Chinese, European, and Japanese space agencies all confirm it. This is real, and it's everywhere." Over the next few hours, more details emerged from the signal. The aliens who sent the warning called themselves the Kethmori. Their message described an enemy they called the Swarm, a group of alien ships that traveled from star to star, destroying every planet with intelligent life they found. The Kethmori had tried to fight the Swarm but were defeated in a battle that lasted only 6 days. Before their world was destroyed, their scientists managed to build a special transmitter that could send messages instantly across great distances. They used their last moments to warn other species about what was coming. Why would they do this? Asked Dr. Kim. Why would they use their final moments to help strangers they never met? Elena looked at the continuing stream of data coming from space. Because they understand something that we're just learning. In the universe, intelligent life is rare and precious. When you find it, you protect it even if it costs you everything. The signal also contained technical information about the swarm's ships, weapons, and tactics. It was like receiving a military intelligence report from a battlefield. The Kethmori had studied their enemies carefully and were sharing everything they learned. Dr. Webb received another call. This time it was from the President of the United States. Similar calls were being made to leaders all around the world. The signal was about to stop being a scientific discovery and become a matter of global security. They want us in Washington tomorrow morning, Dr. Webb announced. All of us. We need to brief the National Security Team on everything we found. As dawn broke over the radio telescope, Elena was still studying the alien message. In the final section of the transmission, she found something that gave her chills. It was a personal message translated into simple human language. To the people of Earth. We are sorry that we led them to you. We tried to hide, but they found us anyway. They will find you too, but you have something we did not have, time to prepare. Use it well. Fight for your world. Fight for your future. Do not let our deaths be meaningless. Elena printed out the complete translation and looked at her team. They were all tired, scared, and amazed at the same time. In one night, everything had changed. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, but they were also no longer safe. What do we do now? Asked Dr. Kim. Elena gathered up her papers and headed for the door. Now we go to Washington and help our government understand what we're facing. Then we help them figure out how to save our world. As they left the radio telescope, the alien signal continued broadcasting its warning into space. But Elena knew that the real work was just beginning. 18 months to prepare for a war against an enemy they had never seen. 18 months to turn the human race into something that could survive what was coming. The message from space had changed everything. Now it was time to see if humanity was strong enough to change too. 3 weeks after the first alien signal reached Earth, the world had changed completely. Every major city had emergency meetings. Every government was making new plans. Every military base was working day and night. General Sarah Mitchell stood in the Pentagon War Room, looking at a wall covered with charts, maps, and pictures from space telescopes. She had been a soldier for 25 years, but she had never faced anything like this before. How many countries have agreed to work together? She asked her assistant, Colonel David Park. All of them, General, he replied. Even countries that have been enemies for decades are putting aside their differences. The Chinese, Russians, Americans, Europeans, everyone has signed the Unity Agreement. It's the first time in human history that every nation on Earth has agreed to work together on anything. The Unity Agreement had created something called the Earth Defense Initiative. Every country would share their technology, weapons, and resources to prepare for the alien attack. Old secrets were no longer secret. Military technology that countries had hidden for years was now being shared openly. General Mitchell walked over to another wall showing pictures of construction projects around the world. Give me an update on the defense platforms. We're building faster than anyone thought possible, Colonel Park explained. The orbital defense ring will have 200 weapon platforms circling Earth. Each platform has enough firepower to destroy a small city. The first 10 platforms will be operational in 6 months, but building weapons in space was not easy. It required thousands of rocket launches carrying building materials up from Earth. Every space agency in the world was working together, sharing rocket technology and launch facilities. Private companies like SpaceX, Blue Origin, and Virgin Galactic were also helping, building rockets as fast as they could. Dr. Elena Vasquez was now working directly with the military, helping them understand the alien technology described in the Kethmori signal. She had moved from her small radio telescope to a huge underground facility in Colorado called the Advanced Defense Research Center. The alien message shows us 3 different types of enemy. Ships, she explained to a room full of generals and scientists. Small fighters that move very fast. Medium-sized ships that carry heavy weapons, and huge ships that can destroy whole cities with one shot. She pointed to diagrams on the wall. The Kethmori tried to fight them ship to ship, matching their technology against alien technology. But the swarm was too advanced. Their weapons were stronger, their shields were better, and they had many more ships. So how do we win? asked General Mitchell. Dr. Vasquez smiled for the first time in weeks. We don't fight them the way they expect us to fight. The Keth Mori message also contains information about human psychology that they observed by studying our radio and television signals. They think humans might be able to do something that no other species has ever done. She opened a thick folder full of research papers. According to the alien analysis, humans are unique in the galaxy. Most intelligent species develop logic and reason, but they lose their ability to think creatively under pressure. When they face a crisis, they become predictable. But humans are different, she continued. When we face danger, we become more creative, not less. We take risks that other species would never consider. We find solutions that seem impossible to logical minds. The Keth Mori think this might be our greatest weapon. Meanwhile, in secret laboratories around the world, human scientists were working on new technologies based on information from the alien signal. The Keth Mori had included blueprints for advanced shield generators, new types of engines, and weapons that used principles of physics that humans were just beginning to understand. Dr. James Chen was leading a team in Tokyo that was building humanity's first energy shield. We're trying to copy the technology that the Keth Mori used to protect their cities, he explained to his team. If we can make it work, we can protect Earth's major cities from the alien planet killer weapons. In Germany, a team was working on new spacecraft engines that could move much faster than anything humans had ever built before. In Brazil, scientists were designing communication systems that could send messages instantly across great distances, just like the Keth Mori had done. But the most important project was happening in Australia, where Dr. Maria Santos was leading research into human brain enhancement. The Keth Mori signal had suggested that human creativity could be improved even further with the right technology. We're not trying to make people smarter in the normal way, Dr. Santos explained to her research team. We're trying to help the human brain work better under stress. When people are scared or angry, they usually make bad decisions. But with this technology, they might be able to think more clearly when everything around them is falling apart. The brain enhancement project was controversial. Many people worried about changing human nature even to fight aliens. But as the months passed and the alien arrival time got closer, more and more people volunteered to test the new technology. Captain Lisa Rodriguez was one of the first volunteers. She was a fighter pilot in the U.S. Air Force, and she would be flying one of the new spacecraft designed to fight the aliens. The enhancement doesn't change who I am, she explained after the procedure. I still think the same way and feel the same emotions. But when I'm flying and everything is happening very fast, I can process information much more quickly. It's like time slows down and I can see solutions that I couldn't see before. As the defense projects continued, ordinary people around the world were also preparing. Families were building underground shelters. Schools were teaching children about emergency procedures. Radio stations were broadcasting information about how to recognize alien ships and what to do if they appeared. But perhaps the most important change was in how humans saw themselves. For the first time in history, every person on Earth was part of the same team. There were no more separate countries or different peoples. There were only humans working together to survive. Religious leaders from every faith were preaching the same message: that humanity had been chosen to face this test, and that they would be stronger together than they ever could be apart. Even people who had never been religious before found comfort in the idea that their struggle had meaning. Children who had grown up learning about wars between different human nations were now learning about the war for all humanity. They practiced emergency drills at school, but they also learned about the brave Keth Mori who had died trying to save people they had never met. The aliens who sent us the warning could have used their last moments to try to escape, teachers would tell their students. Instead, they chose to help us. That shows us what we should be like too, willing to help others even when it's dangerous for us. As the 18th month approached, Earth had been transformed from a divided planet into a unified fortress. Weapons platforms circled the planet like a protective net. New technologies that should have taken decades to develop were ready for testing. Millions of people had been trained for the coming battle, but most importantly, humanity had learned something new about itself. They had discovered that when faced with extinction, they could put aside every difference that had ever divided them. They could work together, sacrifice for each other, and fight for something bigger than themselves. General Mitchell stood in the same war room where she had started this project, but now the walls were covered with pictures of completed defense systems and reports of successful tests. "In 2 weeks, the alien fleet would arrive. Are we ready?" Colonel Park asked her. General Mitchell looked at the displays showing human ships, weapons, and soldiers positioned throughout the solar system. She thought about the millions of people who had worked together to make this possible. She thought about the Keth Mori who had died to give humanity this chance. "We're as ready as we can be," she said. "Now we find out if that's enough." Outside the Pentagon, ordinary people were going about their daily lives, but everyone knew that everything was about to change. The 18 months of preparation were over. The test was about to begin. Earth was ready to fight for its survival. Commander Zix 9947 of the Swarm Fleet looked at the displays in his command ship with satisfaction. Ahead of them, the yellow star called Sol grew brighter as his fleet approached their next target. This would be conquest number 14,847 for the Swarm. Just another primitive world to be harvested and destroyed. The Swarm had been conquering planets for over 2,000 years. They had perfected the process into a simple routine. Arrive at the target system with overwhelming force. Destroy any military resistance quickly. Harvest all useful resources and technology. Eliminate the native population. Move on to the next target. It never took more than a few days. Most species surrendered immediately when they saw the Swarm's massive ships. Those foolish enough to resist were crushed within hours. The Swarm's technology was far superior to anything developed by younger civilizations. "Report on the target species." Zix 9947 commanded his intelligence officer. "The species calls itself humans," the officer replied. "They are a young race, only recently developed space travel. They live on the third planet from their star, with small colonies on nearby planets and moons. Total population approximately 8 billion individuals. Threat level? Minimal, Commander. They have basic chemical rockets and primitive nuclear weapons. Their largest ships are smaller than our fighter craft. Standard conquest protocols should be sufficient." Zix 9947 nodded. This was what he expected. The Swarm's sensors had detected the humans' radio signals decades ago. They seemed to be a typical young species, violent, divided, and completely unprepared for contact with superior alien technology. "What about their response to our arrival?" he asked. The intelligence officer looked puzzled. "That is unusual, Commander. Most species either flee or try to hide when they detect our approach, but the humans appear to be moving toward us. They have ships positioned throughout their solar system, and all of them are advancing in our direction." "Advancing?" Zix 9947 was surprised. "Are you certain? Not retreating?" "Confirmed, sir. They are definitely moving to intercept our fleet." This was strange, but not alarming. Some species did try to fight, especially the younger ones who hadn't learned their place in the galaxy yet. It usually made the conquest more entertaining. "Very well. Signal the fleet to prepare for standard combat operations. We'll destroy their ships quickly and then proceed with planetary harvesting." But as the Swarm fleet moved deeper into the Sol system, more unusual readings appeared on their sensors. The space around Earth was filled with artificial structures that hadn't been there when they first detected the humans years ago. "Commander," the sensor operator called out, "I'm detecting 200 large objects in orbit around the third planet. They appear to be weapon platforms of some kind." Zix 9947 frowned. "Weapon platforms? Show me." The main display filled with images of the orbital defense ring that Earth had built. Each platform was bristling with weapons and energy projectors that the Swarm computers couldn't identify. "Analysis?" Zix 9947 demanded. "Unknown technology, Commander. The energy signatures don't match anything in our database. These weapons appear to be based on principles we haven't encountered before." This was becoming annoying. Zix 9947 had expected a quick, easy conquest. Instead, he was looking at a defended system with unfamiliar technology. But the Swarm had faced unknown weapons before. Their shields and armor were designed to handle anything that younger species could build. No matter, he decided. Open a communication channel to the planet. The main screen changed to show the interior of Earth's primary command center. General Sarah Mitchell appeared, surrounded by displays and military personnel from many different countries. "Attention. Primitive species, Zix 9947 announced in the standard conquest message. I am Commander Zix 9947 of the Swarm. Your world has been selected for harvesting. Surrender immediately and your deaths will be quick. Persist. and we will make your entire species suffer before we destroy you." General Mitchell looked directly at the alien commander without any sign of fear. "Unknown alien vessels," she replied calmly. "You have entered human sovereign space with hostile intent. This is your only warning. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences of your actions." Zix 9947 was stunned. In nearly 15,000 conquests, no species had ever responded to the swarm with a threat of their own. Most leaders begged for mercy or tried to negotiate. A few declared they would fight to the death. But none had ever warned the swarm to leave. "You dare threaten the swarm?" he snarled. "We have destroyed civilizations older and more advanced than yours. We will turn your planet into dust and scatter your ashes across space." "You're welcome to try," General Mitchell replied. "But you should know that we've been expecting you. The Kethmori told us you were coming. They also told us how to kill you." The mention of the Kethmori made Zix 9947 pause. That species had fought better than most before their defeat. How could these primitive humans know about them? "The Kethmori are dead," he said. "Their world is a lifeless rock. Soon yours will be the same." "Maybe," General Mitchell agreed. "But the Kethmori didn't die for nothing. They made sure that when you came here we would be ready for you." She gestured to someone off-screen, and suddenly every weapon platform around Earth powered up simultaneously. Energy readings that had been invisible before blazed across the swarm's sensors. "Impossible," whispered the sensor operator. "Commander, those energy levels—" "They're higher than our own weapon systems." 69947 felt a moment of uncertainty, but he pushed it aside. The swarm had superior numbers and superior technology. Whatever tricks these humans had learned from the Kethmori, they wouldn't be enough. "All ships fire the planet killer beam," he commanded. "Let's end this quickly." The swarm's most powerful weapon charged up and fired a beam of pure energy at Earth. It was designed to crack planets open and boil away their atmospheres. No shield technology in the galaxy could stop it, but when the beam struck Earth, it didn't penetrate to the surface. Instead, it spread out across a shimmering energy barrier that covered the entire planet. The barrier absorbed the massive energy blast and held firm. "What is that?" 69947 demanded. "Unknown technology, Commander," his science officer reported. "The energy barrier is using principles that our computers cannot analyze. It appears to be converting our weapons' energy into something else." Before Zix 9947 could respond, the barrier suddenly flared brighter and redirected the swarm's own planet killer beam back at them. 3 of their largest ships were destroyed instantly by their own weapon. Alarms were sounding throughout the swarm command ship. This was not going according to plan. These humans had technology that shouldn't exist. They had weapons that could destroy swarm ships, and they were showing no signs of fear or submission. "All ships attack Formation 7, Zix 9947 ordered. "Destroy those orbital platforms and then concentrate fire on the planet's surface." The swarm fleet, containing over 1,000 ships, moved toward Earth's defenses. This should have been the end of human resistance. But instead of retreating, the human ships accelerated toward the swarm fleet. "Commander," his tactical officer called out, "the human ships are not following any recognizable attack pattern. Their movements appear to be random." 69947 watched the tactical display in confusion. The human ships were indeed moving randomly, breaking every rule of space combat that the swarm had ever encountered. They were taking risks that no logical commander would ever take. They were sacrificing ships for tiny tactical advantages. They were doing things that made no sense, and somehow, it was working. A small group of human fighters, no bigger than swarm maintenance craft, somehow managed to get through the defenses of a swarm cruiser and destroy its main weapons. Another human ship deliberately crashed into a swarm destroyer's engine section, disabling the much larger vessel. "How are they doing this?" Zix 9947 demanded. His tactical computer finally provided an answer. "Analysis suggests the humans are not fighting according to logical principles. Their attack patterns appear to be based on intuition and creativity, rather than mathematical calculations." For the first time in his long military career, Commander Zix 9947 felt something he had never experienced before: doubt. The swarm had always won because they were logical, efficient, and predictable. But how do you fight an enemy that doesn't follow logic? The battle for Earth had begun, and already nothing was going according to the swarm's plan. These humans were not like any species they had ever encountered. They were dangerous in ways that the swarm didn't understand. Zix9947 looked at his casualty reports and realized that for the first time in the swarm's history, they might actually lose a battle. The thought was so alien to him that he could barely process it. But as he watched more swarm ships fall to impossible human tactics, he began to understand that this conquest would be different from all the others. The humans had turned warfare into something new, something that the swarm was not prepared for. The real battle was just beginning. Captain Maria Santos gripped the controls of her fighter ship as she dove between two massive swarm vessels. The brain enhancement technology was working perfectly. Time seemed to slow down around her as she calculated impossible flight paths through the alien fleet. Phoenix Squadron. "This is Phoenix, Leader," she called to her team. "I'm seeing a weakness in the big ship's shield pattern. Follow my lead and stay close." Her squadron of 12 fighters was racing toward a swarm dreadnought that was 50 times larger than their ships. Any logical commander would have called this a suicide mission. But Maria could see something that the aliens couldn't. A tiny gap in their shield coverage that appeared for exactly 2.3 seconds every time they fired their main weapons. "Phoenix, Leader, that gap is only 3 meters wide," her wingman called out. "There's no way we can all fit through it." "We don't all need to fit through it," Maria replied. "We just need to get close enough to do some damage." The enhanced human brain allowed her to see the battle in ways that normal thinking couldn't handle. She could track the movements of dozens of ships at once, calculate their flight paths, and predict where they would be several seconds in the future. But more importantly, she could find creative solutions that pure logic would never discover. As the swarm dreadnought fired its main weapons, Maria led her squadron through the tiny shield gap. 11 of her fighters made it through. One didn't, exploding against the alien shields in a brilliant flash of light. But the sacrifice was worth it. Once inside the shield perimeter, the human fighters could attack the alien ship's weak points directly. They targeted sensor arrays, weapon control systems, and power conduits with precision strikes. "Phoenix, Leader to all ships," Maria announced. "The dreadnought is disabled. Move on to the next target." Throughout the battle zone, similar scenes were playing out. Human commanders were making decisions that defied military logic but somehow worked. They were sacrificing individual ships to achieve larger goals. They were taking risks that no computer would ever recommend. They were fighting like no species the swarm had ever encountered. Admiral Chen watched the battle from Earth's command center, coordinating the defense of humanity's homeworld. The tactical display showed something that should have been impossible: the swarm. "Fleet was actually retreating. Status. Report," he ordered. "We've destroyed or disabled 40% of the enemy fleet," his tactical officer reported. "Our losses are about 20% of our total forces. The aliens are pulling back to regroup." Admiral Chen nodded grimly. The human losses were heavy, but they were winning. The key was that every human ship that was destroyed took at least 2 swarm ships with it. The aliens had superior technology, but humans had superior tactics. "Send a message to all our allies," he commanded. "Tell them it's time for Phase 2 of our plan." Phase 2 was something that the swarm could never have expected, because no species in their experience had ever tried it before. While the space battle continued around Earth, human communication systems were broadcasting a different kind of message into the galaxy. Dr. Elena Vasquez was coordinating the broadcast from her research facility. The message was being transmitted using the same instant communication technology that the Keth Mori had used to warn Earth. But instead of warning just one world, the humans were sending their message to every planet that the swarm had ever conquered. "Attention to all species enslaved by the swarm," the message began. "This is humanity broadcasting from the Sol system. We are currently engaged in battle with the swarm fleet, and we are winning. We are transmitting complete tactical information about swarm weaknesses, weapon specifications, and battle strategies. The time for your liberation has come." The message contained everything that humanity had learned about fighting the swarm. Every weakness they had discovered, every successful tactic they had used, every piece of technology they had developed, all of it was being shared freely with every enslaved species in the galaxy. But the message contained something else as well: hope. "We know that many of you have been slaves for hundreds or thousands of years," the human broadcast continued. "We know that you have forgotten how to fight, how to dream of freedom, how to believe that the swarm can be defeated. But we are proof that they can be beaten. We are young and weak compared to many of you. But we have something that the swarm does not understand: the willingness to sacrifice everything for our freedom and yours. The message was received on thousands of worlds across the galaxy. Species that had been enslaved for so long that they had forgotten their own names suddenly heard something they hadn't heard in centuries: the sound of successful resistance. On the planet Nexar 7, the surviving members of the Kethmori species received the human message in their underground hiding places. They had thought they were the last of their kind, but now they learned that their sacrifice had not been in vain. The humans had used the Kethmori warning to prepare for war and win. They did it, whispered Elder Vashati, tears streaming down his face. Our message reached them in time. Our people did not die for nothing. The Kethmori survivors began preparing for something they hadn't dared to dream about in years: revenge against the swarm. On 1,000 other worlds, similar scenes were taking place. The four-armed Zephyrians began sabotaging swarm mining operations. The crystalline thought singers started broadcasting rebellion messages that could travel faster than swarm ships. The massive world shakers began breaking free from the chains that had bound them to their slave duties. Back in the Sol system, Commander Zix 9947 was receiving reports that filled him with something he had never felt before: fear. "Commander," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving distress calls from our garrison forces throughout the galaxy. Our slave worlds are in rebellion. The humans have somehow contacted every species we've ever conquered." Zix 9947 stared at the reports flowing in from across the swarm's empire. Mining worlds were going dark. Slave ships were being destroyed by their own cargo. Entire sectors were falling to coordinated uprisings. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "How can these primitive humans communicate across the entire galaxy?" "Unknown, sir. But the rebellions are spreading faster than our ships can respond. We're losing control of our empire." For the first time in the swarm's history, they were facing something they had never planned for: a coordinated galactic resistance. Every species they had ever enslaved was now working together, sharing the tactics and technology that humanity had broadcast to them. The swarm had been designed to fight one species at a time, conquering each world separately and preventing any coordination between their enemies. But humanity had changed all the rules, sir, the tactical officer interrupted. "The human fleet is moving toward us again. They're requesting a communication channel." Admiral Chen's face appeared on the main screen of the swarm command ship. Behind him, the command center was busy with activity as humans coordinated not just the defense of Earth, but the liberation of the entire galaxy. "Commander Zix 9947, Admiral Chen said calmly, "I believe you're receiving some troubling reports from your empire right about now." Zix 9947's voice was filled with rage. "What have you done?" "We've done what you never expected anyone to do," Admiral Chen replied. "We've united your victims. Every species you've enslaved now knows how to fight you effectively. Every world you've conquered is now in rebellion. Your empire is collapsing from within. You cannot defeat the swarm," 69947 screamed. "We have ruled the galaxy for 2,000 years. Admiral Chen's expression was sad but determined. "Your rule is over, Commander. Not because we're stronger than you, but because we're willing to share our strength with others. You made slaves of the galaxy. We're setting them free." Behind Admiral Chen, displays showed the tactical situation across the galaxy. Swarm forces were being defeated on dozens of worlds. Their slave species were not just rebelling, they were winning. The tide of the Galactic War had turned. The swarm, which had ruled through fear and isolation, was being destroyed by hope and cooperation. Humanity had not just saved themselves, they had saved the entire galaxy. But the final battle was still to come. The swarm fleet around Earth was still massive and dangerous, and Commander Zix 9947 was about to make one last, desperate attempt to destroy the species that had ruined his empire. "If we cannot rule the galaxy," he snarled, "then no one will." The swarm fleet began powering up every weapon they had, preparing to destroy not just Earth but the entire Sol system. If the swarm was going to die, they would take humanity with them. The final phase of the battle was about to begin. 6 months after the first battle in the Sol system, Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of humanity's flagship, the UES Liberation, as it approached the final swarm stronghold. Around her, the space was filled with ships from dozens of different species, all of them former slaves who had fought their way to freedom. The war had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Every world that the swarm had conquered had risen up in rebellion. Species that had been enemies for centuries were now working together against their common oppressor. The impossible had happened. The galaxy was united against tyranny. Status report, Admiral Chen requested. The last swarm fleet is trapped in the Nexus system, her tactical officer reported. They have nowhere left to run. Keth Mori ships are blocking the northern escape routes. Zephyrian fighters have secured the eastern approaches and our human forces control the western sector. Admiral Chen nodded. The Nexus system was the swarm's original home territory, the place where their empire had begun 2,000 years ago. It was fitting that it would also be where their empire would end. What about civilian populations? She asked. The swarm never kept slaves on their homeworlds, the officer replied. According to our intelligence, only swarm military personnel and their leadership council remain in the system. This was the moment that Admiral Chen had been dreading. Throughout the Galactic War, humanity had tried to avoid unnecessary killing. They had offered surrender terms to swarm forces who laid down their weapons. They had tried to show that there was a difference between conquest and liberation, but the swarm had refused every offer of mercy. They had fought to the death on every world, often destroying their own slave populations rather than let them be freed. Commander Zix-9947 and his leadership council had made it clear that they would rather see the galaxy burn than lose their power. Incoming transmission, the communications officer announced. It's from the swarm flagship. Commander Zix-9947 appeared on the main screen. He looked older and more desperate than when Admiral Chen had first seen him months ago. The war had broken the swarm's confidence and shattered their sense of superiority. Admiral Chen, Zix-9947 said, his voice filled with hatred. You have destroyed everything we built. 2,000 years of galactic order, gone because of your interference. We didn't destroy order. Admiral Chen replied calmly. We ended tyranny. There's a difference. You call it freedom, Zix-9947 spat. But look at what you've created. Species that were once peaceful under our rule are now fighting each other. Worlds that were productive under our management are now in chaos. You've replaced order with anarchy. Admiral Chen felt a flash of anger, but she controlled it. We've replaced slavery with the right to choose. Yes, some species are having conflicts now that they're free. Yes, some worlds are struggling to govern themselves. But that's better than being prisoners in their own homes. Behind Admiral Chen, the bridge crew was working quietly, coordinating the final battle preparations. Representatives from dozens of species were present. Keth Mori tactical specialists, Zephyrian communication experts, World Shaker engineers, and many others. All of them working together as equals. You think you've won, Zix-9947 continued, but you've only delayed the inevitable. The galaxy needs rulers. Without the swarm to maintain order, these species will destroy themselves. You'll see chaos, war, and suffering on a scale you can't imagine. Maybe, Admiral Chen admitted, freedom is messy and dangerous, but it's still better than being slaves, and I have faith that intelligent species can learn to work together without someone holding a gun to their heads. She gestured to her diverse bridge crew. After all, we're doing it right here. Zix-9947's face twisted with rage. Faith, you're destroying the galaxy based on faith. The Kethamori had faith too, Admiral Chen replied. They had faith that somewhere in the galaxy, there was a species that would hear their warning and do something about it. They died believing that their sacrifice meant something. And they were right. The mention of the Kethamori seemed to anger Zix-9947 even more. The Kethamori were fools who threw their lives away for nothing. No, said a new voice. Elder Vashti of the Kethamori appeared on a second communication channel. We threw our lives away for everything. For hope for the future, for the belief that somewhere in the universe, someone would care enough about strangers to fight for them. Other communication channels opened. Leaders from dozens of species appeared on Admiral Chen's screens. The four-armed Princess Zara of the Zephyrians, the massive Chief Engineer Rockor of the World Shakers, Captain Swiftcurrent of the Crystal Singers, hundreds of others. This is what you never understood about us, Admiral Chen told Commander Zix-9947. You thought intelligence meant being logical and predictable. You thought advanced civilizations would naturally become like yours, cold, efficient, and selfish. But intelligence also means caring about others, even when it's not logical to do so. Commander Zix-9947 looked at all the alien faces surrounding him on the communication channels. Species that had once been his slaves now standing together as free equals. The sight seemed to break something inside him. "You're all fools," he whispered. "You could have been safe under our rule. Now you'll destroy each other." "Maybe we will," Admiral Chen agreed. "But that will be our choice to make. And if we do make mistakes, we'll learn from them and try to do better. That's what free species do." She paused and looked directly at the swarm commander. "You have one last chance on Zix-9947. Surrender now and we'll treat you and your people fairly. You'll be prisoners, but you'll be alive. You can try to build something better." For a moment, Zix-9947 seemed to consider the offer, but then his face hardened with the same arrogance that had defined the swarm for 2 millennia. "The swarm does not surrender," he declared. "If we cannot rule, then we will take as many of you with us as possible." The communication channel closed. On Admiral Chen's tactical display, the swarm's remaining ships began powering up their weapons for a final, desperate attack. "All ships prepare for battle," Admiral Chen ordered, but her voice was sad rather than angry. "Remember, we're fighting for the future, not for revenge. Make this as quick and clean as possible." The last battle of the Galactic War lasted only 30 minutes. The swarm fought with the desperation of cornered animals, but they were outnumbered 1,000 to 1. More importantly, they were fighting against an enemy that had learned to work together perfectly. Human creativity, Kethmori tactical genius, Zephyrian speed, Worldshaker strength, and the unique abilities of dozens of other species all combined into a fighting force that the swarm could not match. When it was over, the swarm's fleet was destroyed and their empire was finished forever. Admiral Chen stood in the same war room where she had started this journey 2 years ago. But now the walls showed a very different picture. Not defense plans for Earth, but cooperation agreements between hundreds of species across the galaxy. "What happens now?" asked General Mitchell, who had been promoted to lead the new Galactic Cooperation Council. "Now we find out if we were right," Admiral Chen replied. "We've given the galaxy its freedom. Let's see what it does with it." In the months that followed, the galaxy did struggle with its newfound freedom. Some species did fight with each other. Some worlds did have internal conflicts. There were mistakes, arguments, and problems that the swarm's rigid control had prevented. But there were also wonders that had been impossible under the swarm's rule. Artists from different worlds began sharing their creations. Scientists from various species collaborated on research projects. Trade flourished between worlds that had been separated by artificial barriers for centuries. Most importantly, when crises arose, the free species of the galaxy chose to help each other rather than exploit each other. The lesson that humanity had taught, that sharing strength made everyone stronger, spread throughout the galaxy. Dr. Elena Vasquez, now serving as Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council, often thought about the Kethmori signal that had started it all. In her office, she kept a translation of the final message that the dying aliens had sent. "To the people of Earth. We are sorry that we led them to you. We tried to hide, but they found us anyway. They will find you too. But you have something we did not have, time to prepare. Use it well. Fight for your world. Fight for your future. Do not let our deaths be meaningless." The Kethmori deaths had not been meaningless. Their warning had saved not just Earth, but the entire galaxy. Their sacrifice had ended 2,000 years of tyranny and began a new age of freedom and cooperation. Elena often wondered what the Kethmori would think of the galaxy now. She liked to believe they would be proud. They had died fighting for the principle that all intelligent life deserved freedom. Now that principle ruled the galaxy. The distress signal that had reached Earth had warned of total annihilation. What followed had indeed been total annihilation, not of worlds or peoples, but of the idea that might made right. In its place, something new had been born. A galaxy where species chose to help each other not because they were forced to, but because they wanted to. A galaxy where the strong protected the weak instead of enslaving them. A galaxy where hope was stronger than fear. The Kethmori had sent their signal into the darkness, not knowing if anyone would hear it or care. Humanity had received that signal and chosen to answer with something greater than words. They had answered with action, sacrifice, and an unbreakable promise. No species would ever face extinction alone again. The age of the swarm was over. The age of cooperation had begun, and it had all started with a simple message from strangers who cared enough about the future to die for it. In the end, That was what made the difference. Not superior technology or tactics, but the simple belief that every intelligent life form in the universe deserved the right to be free. It was a very human idea, and now it belonged to the entire galaxy.